So I need to make this video because I feel pretty stressed out about this whole situation, which to my understanding is my mom's twins' biological father, which I very strongly believe, I don't know if it's true, maybe it's someone else, is the same biological father that her sister has, and even maybe my uncle's wife, Sophie. So I don't know, but I know they looked, especially my sister's Johnny's kid looks exactly like, looks like this could be Marco's sister. You know, when I think about the whole circumstances of a maybe larger picture, there's so much time that has passed that it was, without a doubt, to my dying day, this was all sabotaged from the very beginning. And no one cares. No one seems to care how mutilating and destroying this would have done to my mother. Because if Barack Obama is showing up when I'm 23 years old, and all this is happening when I'm in my 20s, that is an entirely to sabotage directly, personally, at my mother. What do you think is going to happen when my mother, do you think, is going to enjoy you telling everyone, because you're the President of the United States, that my mother had sex and a baby with her same father as her sister? Same boyfriend, the same baby's daddy as her sister. Not only do I know how my mom functions to that, they're going to make sure that they spend every penny they have to make excuses to what my mother really thinks about the circumstances. This murdered my mother, without a doubt. And because no one cares. I'm telling you right now, they are making up stories. I am the only person, me, Frankie, and Julian, are the only three people that know the very deep personal issues directly with my mother. Kenneth and Sarah Cooper and that family does not. And I think it's important for me to talk about, because my mother always saw me, obviously what had happened to Frankie, but it saw me as the good-looking son that was going to represent the family. Because you have all these gays and transgenders involved, all they're going to do, and all they have been doing, is going to make sure it all gets treasured over to her twins, and because they're all gay. I'm the only straight son that my mother had. And they want to make sure that the glories go on to their gays, so they can make excuses of the gay rapes because of sexual orientation. Oh, you're gay, you have gay sex, okay, well, it's okay to get gay raped as a kid. So they'll chisel away at any way they can. My mother would absolutely, there would be such an internal of disgrace that my mother would despise Barack Obama for even showing up, because what you're doing, by this time, she's already had these kids. I'm 20 years old, my dad died, and we're living at her house. I know my mother wouldn't like any of this. I know she wouldn't. I know how she is. But they're making up stories. The President of the United States gets everything and anything he wants. There's always this existence of this sort of cloud that, that he hasn't had me murdered yet, because he has the ability to. He can send a secret assassination to have me murdered and make it look like an accident. And knowing to make me aware of that. I'm not alive because of any other reason, because it's just simply because he hasn't decided with his group of people to have me murdered. My mother, I know, it feels like my mother died. It's hard to describe and feel the emotions right now, because it is so disgraceful for someone to do that. Because you got to understand, the entire time as I grew up, it was always me trying to pivot and help my mother. Somebody would knock on the door, I was trying to sell something. When we went to grocery stores, there was always this navigating, and always worried to see somebody that could harm my mother or take advantage of her. And you don't understand that it wasn't, a majority wasn't because of poor education. It was because of poor education, but it was because people wanted to take advantage of her. It was easy meat. It was easier prey. So I think without a doubt it was a blessing for my mother to some degree. But the way that my mother lived and everything that had happened, you're not going to have, you won't be able to have any good mental stability. You're not going to be able to, because even when my father died, like, this is how bad it gets, right? Like, the day my father, dies, and me and my brothers are talking all together, Frankie, we were talking about a broad range of things. And one of the things that Frankie told me is that he said that he was giving money to, like, an ex-girlfriend he had while he was in the Navy, and it was some Asian girl, and he said that he was sending her like thousands of dollars, and she ended up like lying to him and had like a complete different family and had 2 miscarriages and completely lied to him, and he was in a relationship for like 2 or 3 years with this person, and this person just stole a bunch of money. And he said as well, when he was in overseas, because he was in the Navy, is what he said that when he was in other countries, I don't know what other country he was in, I don't know where, it was somewhere in, Japan, Philippines, something like that. And he said that he had slept with prostitutes. And he said that he had slept with a number of prostitutes. And he said that over there, he says that you can give them $20, and he says they'll rape you. I mean, not rape you. They'll give you sex for anything. And my brother went into details about the sex that he was talking about, and it sounded really crazy. It sounded crazy. I'm not even kidding. It sounded really crazy. Like, his exact words when we were talking was, "Yeah, you can get like a $20 bill and just wave it at them, and they'll bark like a dog inside, their like sex rooms, and you can get them to bend over and do all kinds of crazy sex shit to them." And the way that he talked about it was like if it was a humor, but you don't understand that Frankie doesn't do it in a humorous sense. I think Frankie's not an evil person. He's not. He's not an evil person. He's not. I know. But the way that he described it was just like, it sounded really bad. And me and Julian kind of looked like, damn, this is kind of crazy. And we didn't think of it. And he goes, "Yeah, I only did. I did it a few times, and that was it." Now, I don't know if he could have been making up that story, because I don't think he necessarily would have done something like that unless he, I mean, it's hard for me to think he would have done anything like that, because I don't know the story to it. I really, because what's so confusing to me is that, he's overseas, and he's been, obviously he's raped by 10 homosexual men. For somebody to have been raped like that and then continue that sexual behavior to some other victims, he said that, like, these girls are like 16 years old, 17 years old. He says you can buy anything over there. And I remember this is one of the reasons why I always felt that I had to be ahead of Frankie of the circumstances, because nobody knew about, I was only basically the person with the moral skills, at least when it came to my mother, these circumstances, because Frankie was no longer in the picture. He was in the service. But Julian, when I was 27 years old, you fast forward, I'm 27 years old. I was living with my brother Julian for about 4 months. And when I was living at his apartment, Julian was prostituting and shooting up steroids, and he actually got let go from his job, or he got suspended for a couple of days or something like that, because he prostituted some ex-porn star, or some girl. He prostituted some girl, and he was getting paid to do it a couple of times. And since he was a bouncer at Julian was only a bouncer at a strip club, and this is why if there's cameras and there's recording devices inside Julian's apartment, you'll hear me talk about everything that was going on with me and him. Me telling him, I was like, I just don't think it's the best place for you to be working. Mom went through prostitute. Mom used to be a prostitute, right? So We talked about this, but you don't understand. There's different kinds of prostitutes. My mother was someone that was literally had no choice in her life. Like as a little kid, she did not grow up understanding that she's doing this for money, for fame. She does this to survive, to have something to eat and survive. And there was all of this. We always felt bad for my mother, and that was why me and Frankie knew this whole time. I don't know why Julian would have done something like that. And this was another disappointing fact that was happening whenever I was living with Julian, because all I'm thinking about is my mother's being victimized, and here Julian is prostituting some girls, and but anyway, I thought it was important for me to talk about my mother. There's no way that, especially if she has a child or a set of kids with her sister's boyfriend, like you're having a sexual intimacy with someone that was with your sister. That's like incest. That is like pretty much like that's very close to incest. That is it hurts me because I know that my mother's very beautiful and has been through so much beyond anything that the normal person is going through, and all these motherfucking faggots and transgenders are just doing this to my fucking mother for fame, money, and to make sure, guess who's gonna look good, and guess who the hero really was, and that wasn't the truth. They put me out of the picture because Kenneth knew his other faggots and other gays and transgenders could make someone else a hero and could scum me while he just kind of collects in that family, because my mother despised them and never felt good. And my mother in life wasn't a hatred person. She just didn't want to hate people. You gotta understand, my mother's like a poor village person in a poor village country town trying to survive. Her interest of hating people doesn't exist. She's like a tortilla lady that's making tortillas on a hut in Mexico. And my mother always, growing up, she always saw me, because she had told me a number of times, and she said this to several other people in front of them, and she says, Él es el uno que me va a cuidar un día. He was the one that was going to protect me and help me one day. And because my mother could tell who was going to be very sympathetic within the kids, who had a bigger heart, who was willing to feel, and she knew that I felt a lot of emotion for my father because she was always taking me to go visit him, to go see him. And so me having to go visit my father knew that it's somebody that usually has compassionate life, because no one goes to the nursing home 2-3 times, at least twice a week for 6-7 years, and don't have a heart for humanity, and seeing a lot of awful things there. And I remember my mother saying this, and this is a huge broad range of things that to this very moment pisses me off, because whoever's designing this house and has the cameras and who has all this black guy over here scumming the shit out of my mother and my mom's dead daughter and my sister that died for Kenneth. I mean, he's scumming it from the worst of the worst. And he's wanting to feel sorry for a piece of shit that doesn't deserve to feel any empathy for. I mean, he wants to scum my mother to take any credit away that I have toward my mother and my mother has toward me, and knife my mother right in the heart. That's what his intentions are. He's an identical twin, that black guy that lives in several other people all the people in the house. But he lives in the back fucking corner, and he's like triplets as well. I don't know, he's twins or triplets. I know because they keep switching out. They keep switching him out, coming in and out, but he'll stay for a couple of days, leave, and then the other identical twin shows up, and you can tell their bodies look different. Like, you can tell they're twins. They're not the same person, but they're identical twins. But I want to say this, that I'm very, because but the fact that my mother, it's a desperation for help, and I know it just shows the mental state of my mother. And I know Joni wouldn't have liked it. There's no way, and if that's the same, but I know that this guy, if he had kids, whoever, if he's still alive, I don't know why he's not in the picture at all, because I don't think it's Lucio. This is horrific. They're all gobbling up my mother's money and wealth and scumming me out of the picture, and unfortunately it is some of my immediate family. And no one seems to believe me and understand, because they're attacking me at my job sites. They're attacking me when I go to the grocery store. They're attacking me whenever I go to the Family Dollar store. Everywhere I fucking go, these pieces of shit are showing up, and you don't understand that I've talked about this so many times that nobody cares. And there's not much of an effort for me to talk about it because no one's doing anything about it. Instead, I'm just being persecuted, and they're the ones that are doing it toward me, and it's because they don't want me defending my mother. They want full control over my mother. To show perfect example, I went to Joe's Pantry about a week and a half ago with my mother's twin. When I got there, immediately, as her son, I remember this lady and these people are 100% looking at my mother like, you stupid bitch, I control you, I control your sons, and I tell you what your story's going to be. And I'm the one that says what's going to happen. One of them looks like Kenneth that showed up, and he's a transgender, and there was another few other Mexican ladies that actually pointed out in front of my mother and taunted in front of my mother's face the fact that my father was gay and my father had sex with my mother. My mother had sex with my father, Raymond Paloma, who's now deceased, and he was gay. And she pointed that toward my mother in her face to let her know. And she did this directly to my mother, and she's looking down at my mother, like pointing at her face, like, I tell you what you're gonna do, because this is, Ken Cooper and President Barack Obama, ha ha ha, transgender gays win again. Like, she's pointing her finger at my mother, and I'm looking at her, like, and she can tell she kind of gets ward off a little bit, like, don't say anything, but like, I'm like, the thing is that in a normal situation, had I been very wealthy, it would never be like that anywhere I went with my mother. I would be defending my mother, cracking heads open and cracking people's heads open and fucking people up for people that wanted to harm my mother. Anybody's like that with their mother. And how innocent my mother is. And this is what they did whenever we were at Joe's Pantry. And we leave, like, the lady behind us is like pushing my mother. Like, she wants to get at my mother, looking at my mother evil. Like, I'm going to control you, bitch. I'm bigger than, I'll beat your fucking ass, bitch. Like, this is how they're sort of behaving when we're there. But when they're talking and engaging at my mother, they're engaging at her like, I control you, and I'm bigger than you, and I'm the higher authority than you. And this is what they're doing. Now, they do this because they want full control, and this is why they're putting it all on the twins, because this is why this black guy's over here doing this shit, both of them. This is why this other Hindu guy is over here doing this. This is why the Asian motherfucker over here. This is why the Mexican guy. They're all doing this to do this against my mother. So I pray to God, you don't know how humiliating this is. My mother knows that everybody's going to find out. Obviously, everyone knows I was raped by a transgender. To have me then raped by a transgender, and guess what? Remember when I talk about that I said that Patricia Gadina, who had this sex change, who had a surgical testicles and penis removed, cut off, and then directly ran a suicide bomb right at me. And they were shooting me with electronic devices up for 6, 8, 10 months. Thousands, like hundreds of fucking tickets, chaos. So that I would make a wrong move. They were shooting me with electronic devices in the class, out of class, before and after, the whole 10 yards. Well, Patricia Gadina, she's friends and knows who Lupe is, which is my mother's transgender sister, who was a part of my life growing up, going to spending Christmases and Thanksgivings with us, is her friend. To come rape me. Now that's my mother's other sister friend. There's two of them. There's Lupe and Joni that were primarily closer to my mother than all of them. That was Lupe and Joni. Lupe's a transgender. Joni's a real woman. So I think it's important for me to talk about this because the less quiet I become, the less anything that I figure out or to talk about and put it on video to whoever the psychologists are in efforts to protect my mother and prevent these other people attacking me, to have any kind of conservative of myself of what's happening. That's why they're attacking me. Because if my mother has no defense, they can line it up with their team of their faggots. Now, I'm not trying to call my brother Marco, Julian, and Frankie faggots. I know they're gay, but it is not the same. They see everything very differently in the world. These gays are only for their gays. They're not there for any reason. They're there to mastermind my mother and the tragedies and put it on their dinner table. That's all they're here for. When I go to the grocery store at Family Dollar, there's a black lady that's charging at me that recognizes what I'm saying on these cameras and in this room, and then charging at me, acting crazy. And it's the manager at the Family Dollar store. When I go to the Mexican grocery store, I've already had a lot of bad situations happen to me. People are rushing at me, wanting to control and say they're the defenders of my mother. They're the controllers over my mother. So when they attack me over there, then I get over here and they do it again with this one. And it's a race war. My mother, out of all the people, would have not wanted some black guy to fucking show up and scum her and take control and say she would have wanted more comfortably a Mexican person would have. Because the culture differences and because we know how blacks are. Blacks do things different from Mexicans. Mexicans do different from whites, and whites do different. There's in different cultures and people even, obviously in foreign countries. But I think it's important for me to talk about because I know how my mother would feel. I mean, it's just like flying colors. Like, I know exactly what my mother would be saying and thinking, that everyone would find out that she had sex and has babies with her sister's boyfriend who had kids with maybe another woman. I mean, that's like incest. That is a level of disgrace and humility, but that is from the very beginning I've always talked about, and I said this from the very beginning, and I tell my mother's twin all the time, all they did at my job sites was continuously attack me and persecute me and telling me how much to control and throw me out of the picture because they wanted control over my mother and her state and her money. My mother has an education, the equivalent of probably that of a maybe 4th or 5th grader education level. Today, her twins probably do. My mother had, I think, like 6 months, less than a year. I'd say no more than roughly a little less, a little more than a year of any kind of education while she was in Mexico. This is what my mother used to tell me as growing up. But my mother would lie on applications and she would say she finished at least the 6th grade to say that she had enough education to get by. I'm saying this desperately important because people are taking advantage of my mother. They're raping her in every way that they can for a homosexual and gay movement. They don't like the fact that I'm straight, my mom's straight, and they want to scum my mother. I'm telling you, and I said this from the beginning, those monsters, Miguel and Diana, are those pieces of shit motherfuckers. Those are monster motherfuckers that did this to my mother. They did this for so many years, and to Frankie, they knew they were raveling up a bomb that was going to eventually explode and only contaminate everything else. Why the gay community kept them safe. The gay community said you can live in that house and never go to prison. The gay community said you get to have a job and live a normal life and not eat out of a dumpster like I nearly had to for years. But I think it's important. I think it's important for the efforts for my mother. No one absolutely cares. I'm telling you right now, fuck those celebrities. Fuck those celebrities. Most 90% of those motherfuckers don't care about anything. My mother's not going to want some white fucking bitch blonde fucking lady or some black niggered lady saying that how she saved my mother and put my mother in her fucking place and all this other shit. That's not what my mother would have ever fucking said. They're doing this because they want to help their fucking faggots and President Barack Obama, and that's why. That's why they raped me. That's why everybody in this fucking house doesn't know how to be kind and nice and respectful. And they're doing it directly to antagonize the situation. I don't want to be antagonized about this dead little girl that died. My mother is being fucking raped and brutally mutilated by the caretaker that was taking care of that lady's house. I mean, that my mom's daughter that died many years ago. In fact, Lupe was there, or was one of the people that was there when this little girl that died, this black guy, this black twin over here, this scumming this little girl and my mother, and claiming he's the owner and doing it for Kenneth to clean up after, clean up all the emotions and shit to make it to where for his niggas. Well, Lupe, this little girl, right, that died many years ago, who didn't get a proper burial, was my sister, who had Down syndrome. When my mother left the house, she left with Lupe. Lupe is my mother's sister, my aunt, Lupe Melendez. She was the one that went to the hospital, or had some sort of affiliation the day that the little girl was dying. Like when she went to the hospital, like she had some affiliation, something, because I remember that the day that it happened, because the little girl got into a wheelchair and the ambulance came and picked her body up and took her to the hospital. And I think she was like in a coma, she was dying in the hospital. Lupe is the one that was friends with Patricia Cadena that raped me. Does that, for anybody to even know, and I say this because I have hopes that somebody is listening, and none of these faggots, none of these motherfuckers, because this is just humiliated. They're doing this strictly for their gays. They don't give a fuck. It's just to clean up and make it about themselves. They know my mother is as smart as a bag of fucking rocks. They know that this is on the table for them. They just have to come after me and clean up for them, and they can mastermind it, and they can, because it's free game. There's no punishment when they walk and go a different direction when they leave. It all falls on me. It's just like that. Worthless body, worthless trash. I don't care when I leave, when they leave. That's it. 10 years, 3 years from now, doesn't fucking matter. It's just trash, and that's what they're doing. When I'd rather not be talking about it, be antagonized about it. One of the things that I think about, and I was thinking of this, is when I saw my sister Michaela at the governor's office. And when I saw her at the governor's office, I remember I looked at her and I said, Michaela? And she goes like this. And she goes, and at first I looked at her and I go, Michaela? And she didn't look at me. She just kept on looking at the TV screen, the computer screen. And she goes like this. And then she goes, like she tucks herself in like to clean herself up. And she goes, and the reason I think that maybe if at first I thought it was because maybe she did a porn video with a porn star, or someone put her a sex tape. I didn't think that at the very moment I saw it, but she maybe thought that I knew, and maybe that's why she behaved that way, that there was some sort of sex videotape hidden camera, which I talked about, that I was going through porn one day and I saw this video, and it was Michaela. It was Michaela. Without a doubt, it looked, they could have been using AI. They could have been using some facial structure. It could have very well been AI. But it was her. Maybe I got involved with the wrong people. I don't know. Or the other option that I just thought of now. Natural female-born women take on and feel and have a greater understanding than any transgender will understand. They think they understand, and they don't. They just think it. And it's not the same. They don't understand. So my presumptions is that she sort of did like that because maybe she could have been thinking of my mother and in the defense of my mother. Like trying to give her some dignity and feel that attachment for life. And maybe that's why she did that. Because the way that she looked at me wouldn't have been the way... the sort of attitude, because she doesn't know who I am. You got to keep in mind, I don't even know who Michaela is, that this is my sister that I'm talking to. I don't even know this is Michaela when I'm at Lawrence, Kansas. I don't know when I see her at Magic Time Machine that it's her. I don't know that whenever I see her at the grocery store that this is my sister. I have no idea. So there's a presumption that that could be it, maybe. I hope to God, but it's hard for me to think to myself that Michaela could ever be involved helping anything because she has her own life. Marriage, kids, school, education, money. You have to make a living. Whatever it is that she's going on in her life, she has her own life that she built on her own that I was never a part of or know about. Now, I think it's important for me to talk about this because I'm telling you right now, there are teams of people. Yesterday, this happens all the time. Yesterday, while walking to my mom's apartment, there's a guy that was charging at me. The second I start walking by my mom's apartment, a couple blocks over, before I get there, he has all these trash bags and he runs down the stairs and like tries to throw. And he was the same guy that followed me all the way earlier in the day when I went to Walgreens to buy my mother a bunch of pharmacy medication type stuff because she's going to have surgery in March, which is in like 3 or 4 weeks. So I went and bought her a bunch of like, some some Vicks candies and Vapor Cools and some baby oil and some stuff like that so she can kind of have something to pick from, like a little medical kit. But they're doing this for control. They're doing this to manipulate. This is no good reason. It's hard for me to comprehend the amount of evil that I know that I'm witnessing and I'm watching, and there's nothing that I can do. Because they're erasing my mother's identity and using her twins to do it in order to help Barack Obama. My mother, I know exactly how my mother feels about this, and they're just saying, oh, you're just stupid. We know how you think about Frankie and how you think about you. We know your circumstances. You're just a fuck up, and we have money, and he's President Barack Obama for his niggas. He's just Kenneth and transgender. You're gay and transgender. Gays and transgenders know how to unite with the faggots. That's why, he's just not a real man. That's why he fucked the trans. It's just a mistake. They're just spewing and spitting. There's no one that's spitting more at my mother's fucking face and scumming at her than these motherfuckers. There's no one that's doing it more, especially that motherfucker. But I think it's important for me to talk about because, I love my mother very dearly and I really hope the best. And if you got bad stuff that's going on with Julian, you got bad stuff that's going on with Frankie, then why are they attacking me? Telling me who's in control, because guess what? Let's get away with the rapes over here and then unite over and get faggots right over there. And that's what they're doing. I know the details of it. I know, like, when I used to go to counseling service with my mother, and a lot of the sexual details I was aware of. Like, she was having sex with my dad. That's why it was thought he was my biological father. And he isn't. So I knew the details, I knew a lot of the things that were going on, and I saw my mother cry, my dad's drinking and shit, and I was like 13 years old, 14 and 15. Oh, he drinks a lot. Oh, it's just, and my mother always talked about this as well. She always heard it several times. She said, it's very hard not to be able to have sex. I'm a woman, and I'm not having any sex. And she said that, he couldn't get into my father. Obviously he's really old. This is like right before Viagra got invented. And, I think back then it was like super expensive, but I don't think it had even been invented yet. And, saying my father couldn't get an erection, and it was like serious talk, like sort of like you see marriage counseling services that you would be talking to, the probation officer or the counselor would be in the office. So I think it's important for me to talk about this. My mother's a very dearly loving person, greater than any of these people really understand what a poor village lady is really like. They just see nothing more than a table to feed off of and rip apart anything that they want. My mother's not allowed to touch that daughter, get near her daughter, because she's being abused so much. And here you got this black nigga dragging around her ass around, you know, like a worthless dead corpse for hip hop station, you know, because this is about 97 on the beat and helping, you know, hip hop station with head crack, you know, and helping out, you know, Keynote and Sarah Cooper and feeling sorry for them because now they're old because they were shitting all the way down the road. And when they get caught, now you can't do nothing because it's too late. And that's why they did that. If, you know, just like, you know, who would want to be with my mother? You know, who would want her to deserve to be with a man? You know, a person for herself. You know, oh, guess what? You had sex with this guy, gay guy. Oh, no, guess what? He scummed my mother. I'm telling you, it was President Barack Obama, and he's lying. And he scummed my mother. Scummed my mother to the shithole for his niggas. And that's what for his presidency bullshit. He knows what he's doing with the political power. When you invest something, horrors like that in my environment, that brings curses to my life when I want nothing to do with it. I don't want anything to do with that type of power. I don't want anything to do with those types of decisions. I don't even go vote. I don't register to vote. I don't believe in voting. I don't vote. I don't get to vote. I just give them their money and that's it. They don't care. They kill people all the time. They're running a fucking country. They don't care about certain people. They want to pretend like they're human, normal human beings. No, they're not. You want to pretend. No, my mother wants nothing to do with that. And now they're using our identical twins to bullshit it. Oh, because, you know, President Barack Obama has a transgender daughter too. I mean, son. Oh, the son the son he never had. My mother wants nothing to do with this. My mother would have wanted me to be glorified because she knew that I carried the genetics and potentials to make my mother look treasurable. And then they scummed me. Oh, it's because, you know, Kenneth had made mistakes. He was just trying to be a man. Oh, it was just Sarah Cooper. He's a police officer. Let me make excuses. All they're doing is lying and making mistakes. I am the truth and the path of what my mother wanted it to be and wanted me to say what happened. I hope the professionals are listening. I hope there's heterosexual females. You're not going to get it from these people. You're not going to get it from these homosexuals. They're out for something else. If, to my understanding, no one seems to care, it will be on their table. And that's why this is happening. That's why this is all happening. It is their money. They want to control the $125,000 that my dad left behind. They want to make sure portions of it go to Julian and Frankie and give it some more of their, pitch it off to some more of their gays. You know, Marco, and then Julian and his gays, because he knows gays, because they know that when they cause a lot of havoc, and I have to start slurring words of homosexuality words, it's going to personally direct Frankie, Julian, and Marco. That's why when I go visit Marco, and I see him, I can tell there's affiliation, because he's gay now. And this, me having to tell him that there's a gay community that's after me, and that's what they're doing. Even though he's gay, and he says, I have to tell him, it's still, I don't want to offend him, but that's who's doing it. But guess what? It causes harm. It causes troubles in the circle of my family. And that's what this nigga's right over here for, and this is what this other motherfucker is here for. It's very disturbing because this should not be happening in the U.S. Not in the U.S. My mother took care of a World War II veteran. My mother's being raped and scummed. Yeah, and just give it to Kenneth and just wait till you get old and then rape Hector with a transgender. And then it's just the same, and then transgender movement. They don't care. They don't care for human life. They don't. This is so much of prejudice that's involved, and that's why I have to then be that way. Because then I don't have a choice, because I get the shit from the Mexicans as well. That's why when we went over there, they're doing this to my mother. This lady's pointing directly at my mother's fucking face when we're getting their free food at the pantry. I can tell the vibes, how my mother behaves and acts, and I'm going around my mother's twin, even if it's not my mother, like a 90% ratio, because they're identical twins, like how my mother is. Like this lady's, I'm going to control you and manipulate you. And let me tell you, it gets even more worse. Let me back in time. When I was 19 years old, 18 years old, my mom's boyfriend Lucio, who I thought was Marco's dad, who to my understanding I don't think is, this guy had brought a woman this individual I didn't know this person was a transgender. This person was a transgender Mexican person, obviously, was Lucio's daughter. There was Jenny. There was one other kid, other white kid, and then there was like some other daughter he had. I don't know. And I only met all three of them a couple of times. One of the kids died in an 18-wheeler car wreck when I was 18 years old. When I was, about a year after I was about 18, 19 years old, my mother moves into the house. We're living there. This lady, transgender by the name of Jenny, shows up. And this is like a nasty, fat, larded fucking, like a sumo wrestler transgender. This person doesn't show any feminine. This person looks like a fucking bodyguard, like a fucking, like a security guard. This person in transgender, and it was nasty looking. And Julian didn't really even get along with him very well. And Julian, and she came in, and I remember she came into my house. When they came into my house, they didn't come into my house when they were living there like, this is not your home. This is a house you're coming into. They came in, no, this is my house. And when I remember she came into the kitchen and she looked at my mother, she looked at my mother the same way when I went to the food pantry, and some of those workers and people were looking at my mother like, you better fucking do what the fuck I want. Do what I tell you to do. I don't even know this lady. I'm 18 years old. And this transgender, I don't even know what's a transgender because I didn't even focus on any of these transgenders, is looking at my mother like in a threatening way. And I had to stand in the kitchen, look directly at this lady, like, back the fuck off, like, this is my mother. Like, this person looked like they just came in like, oh, this is mine. This is all mine. I say this is all mine. So I think it's important for me to say this. And she kind of just turned away and looked away, knowing that I was there for my mother. She 100% looked like, you're going to do what I tell you to do. This is like, this Jenny, I think, was like in her 20s at the time, or around my age. Now, a couple days later, a couple months later, I walk into the house one day. This is how disrespectful they were. I could walk into the house. I open the door, and I didn't know this person was a transgender. This is Lucia's daughter. She brought a guy with her by the name of Belos. And this motherfucker, like, when he came to the house, it was like murder. Like, it was 100%. She had gotten this guy to come after me because she had saw that I was defending my mother. And nobody knows about this story. This is how important it is. And he comes into the house, and it was like full-blown murder. This guy looked like he had a knife. I mean, I'm not kidding. I felt like, because we lived in a very small house, I felt like I had to put like a knife underneath my pillow. Like, I may have to kill it. There's no doubts in my mind. Like, I'm going to kill this motherfucker if he comes at me. And this guy was coming into my house looking at me like that. And this is how the threats of harm started to become very real. Like, this isn't a joke. This guy's here to steal. He's here to take, and he's going to want to do it by force. There's nothing. I try to balance things out as best as I can. Come into the house repeatedly. When I go out to friends, come in. Because they were coming on weekends. And one of the days that I came in like 1 o'clock at night, I opened the door, and I saw Jenny having sex. I saw this transgender having sex, riding this guy's, like, she's like 300 fucking pounds, having sex on the fucking ground, and with a white sheet over him, and like riding it. I don't know, like her ass, like getting butt fucked. You know, obviously they don't have sexual organs, and was having sex with this guy. This is the guy that was looking all crazy, and this guy, this is like the hoodlum of Mexican. This guy looked like he had murder in his eyes. Like, there's no doubt that this piece of shit it was just bad. Like, the worst of the worst. Like, I could not walk into anywhere without the sense of immediate danger. And my mother saw some of this. Now, this is, for those that don't understand, this is why I'm trying to protect my mother and trying to defend my mother. Why I have to stay into the picture because of what was going on. Now they're just doing this shit to me because they don't give a damn. They want the money on their table, and they're going to take it. They're going to take anything they want. They're going to put it on their table. They're going to lie. They're going to, whatever force they can, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. There's not going to be any hesitation, and they've been continuing to do it. So I say this because when I go to the grocery store, when I get on that fucking bus, when I go to the post office, it's like hyenas running around me. How much control they can get. Now I have stiffness in my liver. I'm closer to death. Now it's a ticking time bomb. When can we kill and get rid of Hector? And this is not being a joke. This isn't a joke. Was never a joke. This is only a joke for them. Please look after my mother. Please protect her. Please help her. Hopefully this video helps with some information.